Chapter 3. The Barrier. Aliana dashed outside to see the border patrol fighting a pair of Colchis bulls. The bronze bovine charged the group of armored half-bloods. Aliana rushed to the armory, slung a quiver of arrows over her shoulder with a bow, sheathed 2 swords at her sides, secured her venomous knife, and darted back out towards the battle. Clarice and the border patrol were struggling to keep the bulls at bay. The half-bloods tried their best, but they couldn't even get close. The Colchis bulls radiated heat, pushing the warriors back in waves. Aliana halted, knocked an arrow, and aimed for one of the bull's eyes. She released. The arrow flew true but disintegrated into ash before it made contact with the bull. Clenching her jaw, she slung the bow onto her back and drew the twin blades at her waist. The Colchis bulls hadn't noticed her yet, or at least hadn't recognized her as a threat. She tightened her grip on her swords and crept forward towards the fight. She didn't want to give away her position by charging recklessly into battle. As she crested Half-Blood Hill, a blonde girl appeared out of nowhere holding a Yankees cap. Annabeth. One of the bulls turned to pursue the new target. Aliana scanned the plethora of warriors facing down the remaining bull and decided that Annabeth needed her more. She charged towards the other bull as Annabeth danced around its attacks, coming dangerously close to being gored on the bronze horns. Percy shouted a warning from behind Clarice, distracting the defensive line. The first bull plowed through them like paper soldiers, and the second turned to charge the vulnerable targets as well. Aliana and Annabeth's eyes met for a split second before they both darted after the second bull. There was mass chaos. The twin bulls were lashing out in every direction, their heated metal bodies scorching any who dared to attack them. The Colchis bulls reared and charged around the tree, unaffected by the poison barrier. It was weakening fast. Aliana steeled herself and lunged forward, sword held ready. She plowed into the side of one of the bulls, her blade sinking into its haunches. It bucked and started forward. Aliana's blade dragged through the metal before a jet of flames forced the sword loose, sending her rolling across the grass towards the big house. Her arms were blistered and raw, burned by the fiery protections of the bull. She couldn't hold her sword, let alone fight with it. Her palms stung as she pushed off the ground onto her knees. Her hands shook with pain. She watched as Border Patrol took out the bulls with the help of a young Cyclops. His big brown eye burned with a fierce anger. He was very protective of Percy. Annabeth appeared, running down the hill, and helped Aliana to her feet. She held her upper arm, careful not to agitate the burned skin. "Thanks," Aliana managed through clenched teeth. Annabeth held her steady. "No problem." She started towards the infirmary. "That was brave of you." "And stupid," she added quickly. Aliana chuckled. "And a complete waste." Annabeth sighed and shrugged. "Maybe not a complete waste. You did injure one of the bulls pretty badly." "Yeah," she agreed. "And myself, too." Annabeth sighed. "This is nothing. After some nectar and ambrosia, maybe an hour or two with one of the Apollo kids, you'll be good as new." Aliana couldn't help but smile. Annabeth was right, as always. Aliana jolted awake, sending a rush of pain through her arm. The burns were gone, but there was still a ghost of pain. Mason lay motionless beside her. She sighed and lowered herself back onto the pillow. What had her tormentor meant? How could she find him? She slid her left hand behind her head and stared at the ceiling. Suddenly it clicked. She knew what she had to do. Heedless to the pain, she swung herself out of bed and made her way towards the big house. She needed to talk to Mr. D. "Absolutely not!" He crossed his arms and leaned back in his chair. "Why?" Aliana challenged, crossing her own arms. He sighed. "The camp is at its most vulnerable. No one is going anywhere, which means no quests." She glared at the camp director. "You're just hoping a few of the campers will die if you keep them restricted to the campgrounds." He took a long sip of Diet Coke. "That's quite the accusation. Do you have any proof to back it up?" She rolled her eyes. "Past experience and many confessions from you about how happy you would be if we all died." Tantalus, the new activities director, leaned against the wall in the corner, watching the exchange with great interest. "Dionysus has given you his answer." He stepped into the middle of the room, nonchalantly reaching for a strawberry, which leapt from the bowl and rolled away across the floor. "Why do you argue?" He leaned close to her face. He stunk of death. What makes you so special that he should make an exception of his rule? Aliana stared the undead activities director straight in the eyes. Technically, I already have permission to go on this quest, she explained. But since the one who gave it to me is currently unreachable, her death glare deepened. I figured it would be polite to ask again. Tantalus straightened and looked at Mr. D, who shook his head. My answer stands, the camp director held. Aliana nodded in acknowledgement and turned to leave. She paused at the door. I said I was asking for permission. I never said I would adhere to your decision. She walked out before they could answer, closing the door behind her. Aliana crept past the 12 cabins, careful not to wake anyone. She stopped at cabin 3 and tapped the window. When no one answered, she knocked harder. Finally, Percy appeared, bleary-eyed and confused. He slid open the window and squinted at her. Allie, what are you doing? Shh. She scanned the other cabins like she expected someone to pop out in full armor holding a weapon. I'm leaving. What? He spoke a bit too loudly, making Allie shush him again. I don't have time to explain. She looked around, expecting a harpy to jump out and eat her. I have to go. I don't know when I'll be back. She sighed when she saw Percy's confused and concerned face. It's about the prophecy. That just made it worse. I thought we were done with that. Aliana shook her head. Mason wasn't the one in my dreams. You mean it was really... Aliana clapped a hand over his mouth. No. I don't know who it is, but I know how to find out. Percy peeled back her fingers. How? Where are you going? She met his gaze. To the realm of dreams. If anyone can tell me who's hijacking my dreams, it's the Lord of Dreams himself.